So Kelly from Alton, Illinois, joins us via Skype. Kelly, hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, what's your
Ekhart.
question?
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Well, good. Where are you, home?
I'm at home.
Okay, good. This is the coolest thing. Isn't this cool?
It is crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. That's what I think. It's crazy that we're like out here, wherever this is, talking to each other. Okay, what's your question?
Well, my question is regarding religion and spirituality.
Big one.
I had a Catholic upbringing. I married a Catholic, and we're raising our children this way. In reading books such as Tolley's, it's really opened my eyes up to a new way of thinking, a new form of spirituality that doesn't always align with the teachings of Christianity. So my question is to you, Oprah, how have you reconciled these spiritual teachings with your Christian beliefs?
Oh, the question's to me. I was resting knowing it was going to be about him. I've reconciled it because I was able to open my mind about the absolute indescribable hugeness of that which we call God. I took God out of the box because I grew up in the Baptist church, and there were, rules and, belief systems and doctrine. And I happened to be sitting in church in my late 20s, and I was going to this church where you had to get there at, 8 o'clock in the morning, or you couldn't get a seat, and a very charismatic minister, and everybody was just, into the sermon. And this great minister was preaching about how great God was and how omniscient and omnipresent and God is everything. And then he said, and the Lord thy God is a jealous God. And I was, caught up in the rapture of that moment until he said jealous. And something struck me. And I was like, I think about 27 or 28. I was thinking, God is all, God is omnipresent, God is all. And God's also jealous. God is jealous of me. And something about that didn't feel right in my spirit, because I believe that God is love and that God is in all things. And so that's when the search for something more than doctrine started to stir within me. And I love this quote that Ekhart has. This is one of my favorite quotes in chapter 1, where he says, "Man made God in his own image. The eternal, the infinite, and unnameable was reduced to a mental idol that you had to believe in and worship as my God or our God." Now, I think that's very eloquently put by Eckhart Tolle in chapter 1, but that is exactly what I was feeling when I was, sitting in church that Sunday listening to the preacher. And, it's been a journey to get to the place where I understand, as I said on the pre-show here, that what I believe is that Jesus came to show us Christ consciousness, that Jesus came to show us the way of the heart, and that what Jesus was saying, that to show us the higher consciousness that we're all talking about here. Jesus came to say, look, I'm going to live in the body, in the human body, and I'm going to show you how it's done. These are some principles and some laws that you can use to live by to know that way. And when I started to recognize that Jesus didn't come, in my belief, even as a Christian, I don't believe that Jesus came to start Christianity. So that was also very helpful to me. And as I said earlier in the pre-show here, there was a wonderful book called Discover the Power Within You by Eric Butterworth, which helped me reconcile the two. So that might be really good for those of you who are Christian and trying to balance the two. Mm-hmm. What would you say? Because one of the things that Ekhart says in the beginning of this book on page 6 is that this book's main purpose is not to add new information or beliefs to your mind or to try to convince you of anything, but to bring about a shift in consciousness, that is to say, to awaken. He says that on page 6. And one of the reasons why I appreciate him so much is because he truly isn't out to become your next guru. He doesn't want, all of you who are online with us tonight and those millions who will now hear about this book, he's not interested in being your guru, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. How would you respond to that? That's one of the biggest questions that we have coming into our message boards about the same thing that Kelly is addressing here from Alton, about spirituality and religion. This is not about trying to tell you how to believe. And how do you advise people to reconcile this with their religious beliefs?
Well, religion can be an open doorway into spirituality, and religion can be a closed door that prevents you from going deeper. I love reading the New Testament, and I also read the Old Testament. Sometimes there's some incredible jewels in there. And when I went through this inner transformation, and for the first time, accidentally, I picked up a copy of the New Testament at my mother's place, and I started reading, and I immediately recognized the deep truth that is there, and I realized the truth that is deeper, that is expressed in what Jesus said, is much deeper than how the church interprets it. There is a depth to it, and it reflects your own depth when you read it. So there's no conflict between this teaching, which is purely spiritual, and any religion, because if you go deep enough into your religion, then you all get to the same place. It's a question of going deeper. So there's no conflict here with. The important thing is that religion doesn't become an ideology. So it's I believe this, and the moment you say only my belief or our belief is true, and you deny other people's beliefs, then you've adopted an ideology. And then religion becomes a closed door. But potentially religion can also be an open door.
Well, let me share this with you too, Kelly. There is another book by a woman named Elizabeth Lesser. It's called The Seeker's Guide, where she talks about the new spirituality versus the old. So I just wanted to, this is on page 51 and 52 of Elizabeth Lesser's book called The Seeker's Guide. And she talks about old spirituality versus the new spirituality. And she says the old way is the hierarchy has the authority. Church authorities tell you how to worship in church and how to behave outside of church. The new spirituality is that you are your own best authority. As you work to know and love yourself, you discover how to live a more spiritual life. The old is God and the path to worship him have already been defined, and all you need to do is follow the directions. The new is being able to listen within for your own definition of spirituality. Your deeper longings are your compass on the search. And the old says exactly what Eckhardt was saying, that there's only one path. It's the right way, and all other ways are wrong. And the new spirituality says that many paths lead to spiritual freedom and peace. You have a rich array of gems from which to draw illumination. The world's religious traditions, mythology, psychology, healing methods, scientific wisdom, your own experience, and that you can begin to string a necklace all your own. Then she lists, other old and new. And so it's really a question of what you were saying to us earlier, that this material strikes a chord within you. Something in you opens up and once, feels alive and is awakened to that. And yet there is the ideology that says what to you? What is the conflict for you?
Just thoughts on the afterlife, things like that. In a lot of books, such as Tully's, we get teachings from Buddhism or Hinduism, and those thoughts don't go along with, what I was raised to believe as a Christian. So that's been the biggest thing that I've struggled with, I think. So.
Well, I am a Christian who believes that there are certainly many more paths to God other than Christianity. So
right.
I'm a free-thinking Christian who believes in my way, but I don't believe that it's the only way with 6 billion people here on the planet.
Right.
Another author who might appeal to you, who uses Christian terminology but goes very, very deep using Christian language and Christian teaching is Joel Goldsmith.
Yes.
So any book.
Joel Goldstein?
Goldsmith.
Oh, Goldsmith.
Joel Goldsmith. Any book by Joel Goldsmith, I think you would try that and you can see how deep the Christian teaching can be.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Kelly. You're our first Skyper.
Great.
I didn't
I'm
even know what
honored.
Skype was until this. Now we're Skyping all over. We have a Chicago study group watching our webcast together at Borders. Hello. Borders flagship store right there on Michigan Avenue. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I know. Listen, listen. I know it's my ego, but I just can't stop saying how cool this is. I hear that's Ryan. You're Ryan?
Yes, I'm Ryan.
Okay, Ryan.
Hello, Oprah.
Hi. Got a question?
Hello, Mr. Tully.
Hi.
I do. I have a question for actually either of you, and it relates to the spiritual awakening that you speak of in Chapter 1. It seems to me that if you look at human history in the past 100 years, and very poignantly in the past 10 years, that there's been this intensity and speed at which people are becoming more aware of this Christ consciousness. And why do you think that is the case now? Why is this happening now?
It's happening now because we are reaching a crisis point. Very essential things don't happen until there's an absolute need for them to happen. So you can say, in the past, this awakening has been a luxury, and only a few individuals here and there throughout the ages were able to be awakened. And they tried to teach others, but to a large extent, their teachings became misinterpreted. So we are awakening now.
Jesus was a revolutionary.
Yes.
Who got misinterpreted a lot.
Yes. We are awakening now because we have to awaken if humanity is to make it to a next evolutionary level. We need to awaken because the egoic consciousness will become has already become very destructive. It will become more and more destructive. We will destroy ourselves and the planet if we do not step out of the egoic consciousness, the collective ego. If you look at the history of the 20th century, that gives you a taste of what it will be if there is no major shift. I wrote in The Power of Now that 100 million human beings were killed by other humans during the 20th century through warfare and so on. And I recently read in a history book by a Harvard professor that my figure was much too low. It's as much as 160 to 180 million human beings were murdered through warfare and concentration camps and prison camps and starvation, manufactured starvation because China, Russia, and so on. It's unbelievable insanity when you look at that history. And so if there's no shift in consciousness, we will go downhill very quickly because we're already in the process of destroying the planet, but there will also be continuous conflict, collective conflict, and eventually then humanity would collapse.
So you think we're at a crisis point now?
Crisis point, yes.
Well, Ryan, don't you think so too? I mean, when you were with your friends, you know, obviously you're gathered here at Borders tonight because you are interested in this way of thinking, but we all talk about it in some form or another, how bad things are, how, you know, the media, everybody complains about the media and the movies. I mean, if you just look at the Academy Awards this year and the kinds of movies that were made this year, and it's all a reflection of who we are. And you say in the book how we're the species that will go and watch other people on film be maimed and killed and murdered for our entertainment.
Yes. Yes, it's amazing.
It's noise. It's all it's the mind. It's all of that. And my friends and I talk about it, and it's things where we want to push that out and say, well, we choose not to look at those things. We choose not to surround ourselves with that type of energy.
But I just got it. I just had an epiphany, an aha, as Eckhardt was speaking here. I mean, and I'd read this several times in the book too. The number of people murdered, maimed, destroyed by other human beings during the 20th century. But the aha for me was, yes, look at what we did in the 20th century. Look at the surge that we've had in our technological abilities. look at you right now, we're Skyping each other, the advancement in our abilities to create new bombs, new ways of killing each other, so that in the 21st century, if there isn't a shift, if you had over 100 million people killed in the 20th century, God only knows, and I do mean God only knows, what will happen to us unless we start to change this.
Yes, because technology amplifies the egoic dysfunction in human beings. So before, the dysfunction was the same 2,000 years ago, but we couldn't do that much harm because the technology wasn't there. The very same dysfunction still operates and becomes magnified through science and technology.
Does that answer your question, Ryan?
It does, and it just makes me think of what could we do if we just focused that same energy on the positive and helping other people, and I feel that that's where we're going.
But it's also not just the positive. One of the things that I think we all learn from reading A New Earth, that it's not just about being positive, it's about putting our own egos in check. Because as we begin to move forward in our studies the next 10 weeks, you'll see that first you have to see the voice in your head, see how you're contributing to it. Because I think, for years we've all heard that if you're not a part of the problem, you're a part of the solution. I think most of us don't understand, and I did understand to an extent, but got it even more clearly after reading A New Earth, understand how we're contributing to the problem. And the way we're all contributing to the problem is, Eckhardt?
Well, you need to look at your own mind. So it's everybody's responsibility to become aware of their conditioned mental processes, how you react in everyday situations, what kind of thoughts go through your head. It's good to not amplify the negativity that you see around you in the world by reacting to it. You have to be very much aware, of course, of what your mind is doing. So observe your own mind, be there as the witness of your mind, so that the witnessing dimension, which is awareness or presence, grows. You are not your thought processes. The thought processes are conditioned through thousands and thousands of years of conditioning. And there is dysfunction built into the very structure of our thought processes. And this is how the ego arises. We'll talk about that in more detail.
That's right.
But to recognize in oneself, you may not contribute to the murder and so on out there in the world, but it's everybody's responsibility to discover that dysfunction within them.
Yeah, so you get that right, Ryan. What he's saying is that there is a collective consciousness that he talks about, pages 11 and 12. The dysfunction of the egoic human mind has created the situation in the world today, he says in A New Earth. And what I hear you saying, Eckhardt, is that our individual fears, doubts, angers, jealousies, resentments all contribute to the collective.
Yes.
And so in order to begin to change the collective, each one of us has a responsibility to sort of mine that within ourselves.
Yes.
Because that's how we're contributing to the collective.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's not just the road ragers. It's however you're holding resentment and anger and jealousy and fear in your own life. That's what you're saying.
Yes. What is it that you're putting out into the world? Is there negativity, mental, emotional, in you?
Yes.
Because that contributes to the collective energy field. So you can only go, so it's up to the individual to step out of the egoic consciousness.
Yeah. You got that right, Ryan?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense.
Thank
you. Thank you, Borders.
Thank you.
We've got Erica, who lives on a U.S. military base in Landstuhl, Germany.
Oh, you're in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes. Morning.
Morning.
Yes.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, Oprah. Thank you so much. This has just been crazy, as you said.
Crazy fun.
Yes.
Landstuhl, Germany. Never heard of it, but glad to have you from there. Hello.
Oh, thank you. Thank God for Skype.
Thank God for Skype. Okay, what is your question or comment to us?
Well, my question is for Mr. Tolley. I too grew up in the Baptist church, just like Oprah and so many others. And you talk about the voice in my head. And I had a situation where I no longer attend that church because the behavior didn't line up with the teaching. But on Sundays, when I'm at home with my family and we're enjoying a nice day and we decided not to go to church, that voice in my head says things like, you didn't go to church today. That's not how you were raised. When your mom calls, what are you going to say? Can you help me with that on explaining why we have the voice in the head that says things like that?
Yes.
Yes, he can help you, Erica.
Now, the voice, of course, is the conditioned thinking. The voice, what the voice says, is conditioned by your past, by your childhood, by your upbringing, by the surrounding culture. All those things condition your thought processes. And sometimes it happens when you awaken, maybe not completely, but when the awakening process begins, a lot of the old voices in the head, the old thoughts, still come up. They still come up. And the essential thing is to recognize them as conditioned thought processes. And to see, because the fact that you're asking the question means there's already an awareness there that these are the voices in your head. So you are not totally identified. Because if you were totally identified with the voice, you would say, I feel so terrible. I really think I should be doing this. But you realize it's the voice in the head that's doing it. And then you can allow it and say, okay, there's an old thought, and allow it to be there and be the awareness behind the thought. And anybody, this is not just for your particular case, there are many other instances where people have the movement of thought, telling them this or that, interpreting events and people according to the old conditioning. When you meet people, telling you immediately judging somebody according to your old conditioning, with prejudices, with all the old conditioning. So the only way you can gradually go beyond the conditioned thought processes is simply to be there as the witness. You don't need to act on it or say, go away, I don't want to be thinking this. That doesn't work.
Right.
It would only give it more energy.
That's right.
So again, a vital thing, and this will be going throughout the book and the teaching, is as much as possible, be aware of what your mind is saying and realize that's only a small part of the consciousness, the totality of consciousness that you are. Many people don't know that yet. They're totally one with the voice. They are the voice. They're so identified with every thought that comes. There's no space between them and the thought. So the essential thing is realize there's thought processes, and here I am as the space for the thought, as the awareness or the space for the thought.
And that the thought is only a part of...
A small part is the conditioned part of who you are.
Who you are.
That's time-bound, it's conditioned by the past. There's a more essential part of who you are, and that is the awareness that knows that there's a voice.
The awareness of the thoughts.
Yes.
Which we're going to get into in further detail. But also, Erica, let me share this with you. Part of what you and our first caller from Alton, Illinois, was also talking about is trying to reconcile the two. The reason why the voice keeps repeating is because, of course, of what Eckhardt is saying, it's conditioned thinking, but also the guilt is you haven't made a decision for yourself about what is real or true for you. So you're still being led by the conditioned thinking and haven't made a decision. And for me, that came when I was able to do exactly what Eckhardt said earlier. I didn't phrase it the way he did. I asked God to use me. That has been my prayer for many years. Eckhardt says, ask life what is its purpose for you. But I would pray on my knees to God and ask to be used and to be a servant and to allow His Spirit to work through me and to not to just be on television, but to be able to use television for a purpose that was greater than my own personality and to collect shoes in my closet. Didn't mean I wanted to give up the shoes, but I would if I had to. So when I started to ask that question of God, how can I be used? God, how do you want me to live? How would you have me be? I let go of the guilt of, did I make it to church or I didn't make it to church? Because the majesty and power and omniscience of this force that we call God cannot be contained in a church.
You're right.
Cannot be contained in a church, and does not just want to be served in a church. But if church allows you to feel like you are being of service, then use it that way. But the bigness is what Eckhardt was saying in that quote in the book, man made God in his image, the eternal, the infinite, and unnameable force that is God, that is all consciousness, that is universal energy, I don't believe wishes to just be served on Sunday at 11 o'clock service.
Nope, I don't.
And so that's what you're trying to reconcile with yourself, the voice in your head versus what you really should be doing.
That's it.
Yeah. So
thank you. That's it.
You need to make that decision for yourself.
Thank you.
And start asking that question of God.
Okay.
All right?
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica, from Lunchstool. Lunchstool Germany.